Only 20% of Americans trust their governments to do what's right in 2020, compared to 73% in 1958. So this was a poll a little while ago who looked at whether or not Americans still have any faith in their government to do what's right. And what they found, quite shocking. The numbers are stark and undeniable, a damning indictment of the moral and institutional rot at the heart of the American political system. In 1958, a full 73% of Americans expressed a trust in their government to, quote, do what's right. Today, that figure has plummeted to a mere 20%. This precipitous decline in public faith is not the result of some temporary political squall, but rather a systemic failure of governance that has been decades in the making. The causes are manifold. The quagmire of Vietnam, the disgrace of Watergate, the callous indifference in the political class of the needs of the common citizen. But at its core, the crisis of trust reflects a profound moral bankruptcy within the American state. For too long, the levers of power have been seized by self-serving elite, more concerned with the preservation of their own privilege than with the well-being of the republic. They have subverted democratic institutions and undermined the rule of law and shamelessly pandered to the basest instincts of the electorate. Is it any wonder why the people have lost faith? And this is what I was saying earlier, guys, is that the loss of culture, the loss of motivation, the most basic instincts of people are what we're pandering to now. And that has subsequently led to a decrease in the intelligence level of the people and this amount of useful information that comes out of TV programming and the type of people that we're voting for and the type of rhetoric that we hear them saying. It's all just a dumbing down, a simplification, and going back to our most primitive instincts, because after our need for survival is completely wiped out, then we become culturally mutated to become something completely different. And a lot of times that's human beings that are void of any empathy. The fault, dear citizen, lies not in our stars, but in ourselves. We have allowed our leaders to betray the sacred trust placed in them, to erode the very foundations of our civic life. And now we find ourselves adrift in a sea of cynicism and disillusionment. Our once proud nation reduced to a husk of its former self. But this is no time for despair. If we want to reclaim the moral high ground, to restore the people's faith in the government, we must demand a new era of accountability, transparency, and ethical leadership. The task will not be easy, but the alternative is the continued decay of our democratic values. It's unacceptable. The United States of America, the once shining beacon of democracy and opportunity, now stands at a critical juncture. As the world watches, the land of the free grapples with internal strife, eroding institutions, and a moral crisis that threatens its very foundation. The rich get rich and the poor get poorer. I mean, this is an adage that was whispered in the corridors of power and it reverberates across the nation. The median wealth per adult in the U.S. languishes at the bottom of the heap among high-income countries. We find ourselves in the 27th position. It's a stark reminder that prosperity, even not evenly distributed, does nothing. The American dream used to be attainable, and the statistics back that up. Hard work, determination, it pretty much eludes everyone now. The erosion of trust happened over time. We used to say, in government we trust. And so it used to be. The halcyon days of 1958 and the staggering 73% of Americans that believed their government would do what's right. And by now, the 20% leaves skepticism with everyone. And you can't help but to wonder the income inequality and how the rich and the and the working class have just completely landed on different planets and don't exist in the same world anymore, that you know that the economic system is built off the foundation of hundreds of thousands and millions of laborers, people who do the work, and yet all the money is going up to just a few people. In any other situation, that would be called a pyramid scheme. So, what is right? That's a question that haunts the collective conscience. Gallup's poll that 71% of Americans perceive a moral decline in their nation, and another poll from the Pew Research Center corroborates the sentiment, reporting that 74% of Americans witness a decay in moral values. So, as we grapple with ethical dilemmas, we must confront our own complicity in this unraveling tapestry. You know, the Social Progress Index that places the U.S. at a middling 16th position out of 133 countries. We're the number one economy in the world, guys. We're the number one economy, GDP per capita. And yet we rank low on all the metrics that you would think would give us pride. Our once social well-being, a point of pride, now wavers. Meanwhile, the Fragile States Index paints a grim picture, 20th out of 178 nations. We stand on shaky ground, teetering between resilience and collapse. Now we have the strategic manipulation of elections. Democracy under siege. These are phrases echoed ominously now, everywhere you go. Our democratic institutions face relentless assault, gerrymander, voter suppression, lobbying, executive aggrandizement threaten the very bedrock of our republic. All these things. And since 2010, state legislatures have chipped away at our voter access, rendering our electoral process a shadow of its former self, making your vote worth jack diddly squat in the grand scheme of things. The independence of our judiciary, once sacrosanct, now wavers under the weight of executive encroachment, meaning you have people like the president putting in people in power who nobody voted for, who clearly only have the business interests in mind. It's in balance. I wouldn't say any solution is the right solution, but certainly a balance that keeps human suffering and environmental degradation in check would be fine, would be a good start. Let's rise up and reclaim our rightful place as the guardians of this great experiment in self-governance. Let us hold our leaders in the highest standards of conduct and refuse to settle for anything less than principled, responsive government that our founders envisioned. At the very least, make good on the promises that you made us as far as American dreams and no child left behind and all the other empty, hollow rhetoric that capitalists have spurted out over the years to justify a system that invariably ends the same way every time, with a whole bunch of rich people urinating on the poor peasantry down below.